Hey y'all, I sat down outside today and just talked through my gardening journey. No script, no editing, and believe me, this is the short version. Even though it's about 10 minutes long, it's because I'm really going through 16 years of figuring everything out. So, this is how it started. Hey y'all, I'm trying something a little different today, and I am just going to talk instead of the heavy editing that I usually do. This is a special occasion because today is Earth Day. And so I really wanted to talk about how I got into gardening, how long I've been gardening, and just a few topics like that. Also, I'm using my microphone that I've had for who knows how long that I never use. So I'm also trying that out too. Anyhow, my 18-year-old son got me into gardening mainly because he used to like to pick me flowers at Lowe's after Lowe's Build and Grow. That was something that he and his dad would do. They'd go to Lowe's Build and Grow. Then my husband would take him over to the garden center and he would pick out a flower for me and we would put it in a pot and try to keep it alive. When we bought our first house, then we decided to move those flowers into landscaping and I had to learn all kinds of other stuff. I ran out of time. So once we put those plants in our landscaping, overnight they were eaten either by deer or rabbits. I'm really not sure. But we went back to Lowe's the next day with a plan this time, though. My son wanted the flowers to be purple. He wanted pet bees. He wanted something that would bring pollinators, bring bees. And we also knew we needed something that would survive in that spot because of the type of soil we have. We went to the garden center, spoke with the garden specialist, and there they taught us how to read the tags. So she taught us how to look for things that were deer resistant, rabbit resistant, um, perennial. These were all things that I was not familiar with back in 2010. This made me do my research, and we end up walking away with the with several May-night salvia and put those in our landscaping. And from then on, my son would sit in the window and watch his bees, his pet bees. So now we're fast forwarding a bit, and until to when my son is, let's say, maybe 5, so 2 years. So there's been 2 years of me flower gardening. I was mainly doing herbs and flowers, learning a lot about how flowers grow, what they need, annuals, perennials, and growing flowers from seeds, things like that. But then somewhere around when my son was about 4, I believe, he wanted a fish. And he spotted this person when we were somewhere selling fish with the plant at the top. And so I said, well, let me look into that because that doesn't seem right. Like, is the fish okay? So I went home and I researched it and I learned about aquaponics. And so obviously we went back and we got him that fish. From there, we started learning about hydroponics, and my son had a whole new fascination. So now we are fast forwarding to food gardening. How did that happen? So we were out of the country, had to get rid of the fish. We got back, and the house that we lived in, that we rented at that time, had a pear tree. And by this time, I have 3 little boys, and they are fascinated with this pear tree. Everything about it. They want to understand, you know, what's going on with it. Obviously so. I mean, I think I would have been fascinated with that as well at that age. I think at this point Tori is 6. It was 2014. And so where most people start food gardening with tomatoes or lettuce and things like that, I started really with a pear tree and moved backwards. So I learned all about fruit trees so that I could teach it to my kids. And then eventually we started growing our own. When I think about how I got into food gardening, it wasn't a yard. I didn't have a raised bed. I didn't have any land or anything to grow food. I really dug into food gardening when I only had a balcony. We were living in a row house in Washington State, and there we couldn't touch the grass. It was just a little patch of grass in front of the house. And I asked, but no, we couldn't do anything with it. It was only for landscaping to touch. So I really missed my flowers and my garden and obviously the fruit tree. So I decided to start growing herbs and flowers on the balcony. I really still wasn't into growing vegetables or anything yet. until my son decided he wanted to do his science fair project on hydroponics versus aquaponics, and we had to buy all of these seeds. The leftover seeds I used to grow as experimentally with my younger two sons. So now we have a lot of leftover seeds. And while he's doing his science fair project, his brothers, they want to do a science fair project, even though the youngest, I think, was 2 at the time, 2 or 3, and the middle brother was, I think, in kindergarten or first grade. I don't know, one or the other. So I ran a science project with them separately, but not a hypothesis style project. We just planted the seeds outside on the balcony in pots. And also, we got the Jiffy seed starting trays from Lowe's and planted some seeds in there as well. We didn't even label them, we just planted them. Next thing you know, they're harvesting food, cucumbers, radishes, lettuce, all from the balcony. And that's when our learning garden began. While at Lowe's looking for supplies for my son's project, I spotted a hydroponic system and became very interested. I went home, tried to do a little research, and ultimately I decided that I needed to have this. Like, I wanted this really bad. And my husband got it for me. So we, from there, started growing herbs out of our arrow garden. Now, what I will say about Lowe's is it has been constant in my gardening journey because as a transient military family living in all different spaces, going to Lowe's allowed my children to have something that was constant no matter where we went. The vest, the general layout of the store, the experience of Build and Grow, which is now called, I think, Kids Club or something, allowed me to continue to keep a ritual for them no matter where we lived. I started using my arrow garden. My eldest son, Tori, once again came to me with this video that he found on YouTube of the crack key method. It was by Epic Gardening. I still have this video saved in my notes from 2017 from Epic Gardening. And that is where I learned about the crack key method. I kind of went down the rabbit hole and realized, okay, I can get some mason jars. Let me find these net cups and let's see what I can do with having countertop herbs because I personally don't like having soil in the house. I don't like to deal with fungus gnats. So we did it and it worked and it became my new favorite way of preserving herbs and of growing in water. So now we are in 2017. We have learned hydroponics, aquaponics. We have had fruit trees. We have had a successful balcony garden, and we are able to move back to Georgia to our original house where it all started with the flower garden. And we know now that we're going to take our balcony garden to the backyard. But I still wasn't quite ready for raised beds or in ground gardening, so I did everything in pots. And that first year was pretty successful, but the next spring we went for raised beds. So my husband built me some raised beds out of reclaimed wood, and I made an upright pallet garden out of a pallet, and it was great, and the kids really got into it, and we didn't make a big fuss about eating the food because we were more so looking at the process. So each year we grew something different. So how did I go from pallet garden to cattle troughs? Let's talk about it. We started with pots, of course, moved on to raised beds made out of reclaimed wood and pallets. Then we bought a cedar or a few cedar bed modular kits. And so we had our garden set up with 2 U shapes and we covered all of the grass around the garden with pebbles. That was great. It was beautiful at first, but then the cedar has to be replaced. It starts to deteriorate, and the pebbles were not accessible for me. I had to have a major foot and ankle surgery. It was a 1 year recovery, and I couldn't maneuver through my garden on the pebbles. So when we redid the garden here at this house, we got cattle troughs and we left the grass. This way, it's not going to deteriorate. And this is where it led. And the now is in part 11. I'll link it below.